humble introduction from my heart, or from the council's heart to you, Barbara, welcome, Barbara Shapiro.
Well, thank you. And I want to take a minute to just formally acknowledge that I see that Annie Watman is on, and I actually just hung up a few hours ago with Annie, who I'm thrilled to be taking over this position here at the school, and will lead us into the, next years or decades or whatever of continuing the great work of being here. And as I told Annie, this is like a dream job, having worked here. But having said that, we're all here now to talk about golf outings. So I will tell you, I've become what I think is somewhat of an expert on a golf outing, and I have never played a game of golf. I think that is my goal this summer, is to get golf lessons, but I have never learned. But the thing that I did learn, and this is the first thing, is it is a great moneymaker. And while we're all looking under rocks and places to figure out supplemental income for our organizations, this is a huge moneymaker if you sort of take it slow and steady and figure out the right way to do it. It is great supplemental income. We typically add about 100,000, give or take, depending on the year and the weather and so forth, to whatever our fundraising goal is for the year. So you can imagine in all your organizations being able to add $100,000. And as we all know, there's never enough money. So what a great way to have additive income to your bottom line. So I've done one every year here, and I think I did one at UJA before I had left, and that's when I really had just started. I would tell you that what is key is finding a club that has tremendous cachet, because people want to play at a golf course that they can't typically get into. So our goal was always to go to Quaker Ridge, because we thought that that was a very sought after club. Took us years to get in because everybody wants to have their golf outings there. And unless you tell them you don't want to come back the next year immediately, that's your spot. That is your spot. Like we have the second Monday of May right now. We did have the second Monday of June, which we loved, but one year it was Shavuot. We lost that day, so it went to another club. So it took us a few years to get back into the club, and then we had to settle for May. So you have to start about a year ahead of time, going to the clubs and asking them. I will tell you that we raise the most money when we're at Quaker Ridge. We have played at Fenway, we played at Brayburn. We never had an outing at Old Oaks. It's a very sought after club. We've never had a reason yet to go ask to play there, but that's a very popular club. We played at Metropolis for a few years. When we had lost our place at Quaker Ridge, we went to Metropolis because it's in our backyard. You could literally swing the golf club and hit balls into the golf course at Metropolis from our upper school. So we played there for a few years, but I will be honest with you, clubs that have a little bit less cachet, less people were willing to come out to play at that club versus like a Quaker Ridge or a Fenway or an Old Oaks. So whatever group of people who are going to work on this, you really need to start a year ahead of time this summer to secure dates. It is easier to get dates in September, October, and May. And if you're asking for June, July, or August, it's really tough. But my recommendation is choose May. Like this year, we had our outing on May 8th. It was 75 and sunny. And that's ideal for those of you who play golf, great weather. And the clubs will usually offer that. If a club says they have no date, what I've learned is a little bit of inside information. Ask for a Tuesday. It's such a moneymaker for the clubs that they would perhaps give you a Tuesday. You're not going to get it unless you ask for it. We're going to have trouble with our date for next year because it's Holocaust, it's Yom HaShoah, so we cannot obviously play golf. So the first thing I said to them is, you need to swap us for a Tuesday next year and then give us our Monday, back. But the point is, no to ask for a Tuesday. But again, the first thing I would start with is getting a group of people to call the clubs, ask for a meeting, and try to get on their calendar.
Barbara,
that is, yes.
Barbara, sorry. Is Monday like you keep on saying Monday. Is Monday the day when this is done?
So Monday is the day at all the clubs that it is closed to their members, and it is open specifically for golf outings because they make a tremendous amount of money. It's additive money to the golf club to have us, to have golf outings. So they typically start in mid-April and go through October of having Monday events. They become so popular that they have decided on dates that they think are not as popular for the general membership of their club, that they open Tuesdays. And that is has only been in the past couple of years. And again, they won't promote it, but if you say, could you give us a Tuesday? They sometimes manage to give you a Tuesday. I think that the golfers have told me in the past that they prefer to play on a Monday than taking off a Tuesday. But I think if it's the right club, you'll be okay.
Barbara, there's a question in the chat. Are there specific clubs that should not be approached to host an outing?
I wouldn't, I
That don't have cachet, let's just say, like,
so I don't have that experience, but because I've only worked with Rayburn, Fenway, Metropolis, and then of course Quaker Ridge. But I will tell you that Metropolis did not have the cachet and our numbers were down. You have to guarantee the golf course is 80 golfers. So I think that the years we were at Metropolis, we had a hard time getting 80 golfers. This year we had 87, which is a nice number. You want 80. It just works well. We also do tennis, by the way, but we do golf and tennis, and we had 87 golfers and 26 tennis players. I just found that our numbers were down with Metropolis. And I found for this room only, and I haven't been back there in 4 years, they were tougher to work with as a staff. More was expected of us, and I found it a little tricky to navigate, just setting up and so forth. But I would try to do Fenway, definitely Brayburn, and definitely Old Oaks or Quaker Ridge. Those are your 4 clubs that people want to go play the course. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's others, but I find those are the ones that people are interested in playing. So the next thing that's really key, and we didn't do this the first few years until I realized why not, and it will bring in money, is have an honoree. So about 7-8 years ago, I decided let's honor someone. Even though we have a gala either right before or right after, let's honor someone. And the numbers of what we raise went up by 1/3. So it's great to have an honoree, obviously, who plays golf, and get them involved, put them on the committee. And we'll talk about the committee as we move through the process, but I would definitely have an honoree. And I'm sure at most of your organizations that you can come up with the appropriate person who's an avid golfer who you would want to honor. Because what happens is they bring in people from the outside. You want people to, which we'll get to, sponsorships, and they, as part of their job, will reach out to their friends and their friends' friends and, corporate sponsorship. And that's how you will grow the dollars raised. So so far we've got your club is key. Secondly, it's very important to have an honoree because it's key to raising the money. The third thing is have as much sponsorship as you can think of. For instance, you always sponsor like an Eagle package, which we do the Eagle, which is you come and you pay $6,400. It's a $6,400 package, and it includes 4 golfers. It includes signage on the banners, and then it includes signage on the hole. Like you can pick a hole and it'll put, the Elliott Forsheimer hole, and so forth. Anyway, people want the sponsorship. But what I've learned over the years, besides having the Eagle sponsorship and the Birdie sponsorship, and then, the golf cart sponsorship, where you put someone's name or organization on, an 8.5 by 11, foam board, and you put it in sort of the windshield of the golf cart. If you can come up with clever non-player sponsorships, that is where you raise a lot of money as well, such as, first of all, it's the overall event. We do the entire event of $15,000. You are sponsoring the whole event. You get 8 golfers. You get, the signage for it. That is a big money maker. Usually the honoree will buy that sponsorship. So if you think about it, if the cost of the day is like $500 all into play, and you charge $15,000 for it, and there's 8 golfers, so you've spent $4,000 on the cost of the event, and then you have $11,000. That is all money for your organization. So that's the first thing you want to sell. Another thing is you sponsor everything. You can buy the brunch sponsorship. You can buy the cocktail reception sponsorship, the dinner sponsorship, all these kinds of sponsorships. The more sponsorships you put in that are non-player, the more money you will make. And it's also a way where someone, if they say, oh, I know the honoree, but I don't play golf, so I'm not going to come to the event. Well, would you be interested in a non-player sponsorship so you can take part in it and do something for your friend who's being sponsored, yet you don't even have to show up that day. And that is all revenue for your organization, because to spend $5,000 on such as the dinner sponsorship, there's no cost for you. There's no overhead for us. So if the $5,000 is putting up, a 3x4 sign saying tonight's dinner is sponsored by X, it's all extra money for you, but it's a way for the honoree to be acknowledged by someone. Does that make sense? And do you have any questions about the non-player sponsorships?
Are you saying, Barb, that we should definitely combine the golf with tennis or with other things also, or is like the tennis thing an extra?
So I'm, to be perfectly honest, neither here nor there about it. It was a request from the community for the tennis to happen. They finish earlier, so it's a little challenging if we want them to stay for dinner. If they finish at 3 versus 5, what do you do with these people from 3 to 5 before the cocktail reception? How do you get them to stay? Because you want them to stay for the dinner. So it's always a little challenging, and some of the tennis players complain, can they start later in the day? It's very, I'm seeing some tennis and pickleball too. What we decided, so Elliot, that's a good observation. What we have done is when tennis finishes at 3, you can play pickleball. We have figured out all kinds of ways to then keep them there. We put out lawn games now, and we put out a bar, and we put out all these lawn chairs so that after you play tennis, you can have your pick. Lawn games, pickleball, just sit around and hear music and listen and have a drink. But you want those 3 o'clock people who finish to stay till 5 o'clock. You really want that. Was there any other questions about the non-player sponsorships? Will a venue give you a rain date? Yes and no. They will not tell you up front they'll give you a rain date, but the truth of the matter is, if it is pouring that morning, and we've never had to use a rain date, but one of the days it was pouring so bad that we had to get off the course 2 hours later. And we just let them play for 2 hours, and some people were upset, others were okay with it. And the thing about it is, if they won't give you a rain date, the money is raised. Everything is collected beforehand. So that day, the only thing that's not raised that day are little games we play on the course, like Beat the Pro, and also the raffles, which we raise, $5,000 to $6,000 in raffles. So you won't get that because they won't be there. But I have to believe that if it is raining, torrential rain, they will give you a date, but it probably won't be till October. They sort of save those for October. And when you reschedule, you always get drop off. If someone asks for a refund because they can't play in October, I think you have to give it to them. But I don't know how, but we've never experienced a day where it was completely canceled. So that's it. The next thing, which is really interesting and people get very caught up in, is the swag. People like to come, they want a cool jacket. One year we did where they could buy golf shoes there. We had a whole assortment of, a company who makes golf shoes came with their rep and let people buy golf shoes. This year we gave away a very heavy lined windbreaker. People ask when they sign up, what is the swag going to be? It's a very big deal to them. So I know it, but you know what? I have figured all that out, and you make sure they have everything so that when they leave at the end of the night, they feel like every penny they spent that day was worth it. And you leave with them wanting to come back the next year. And that is key. So you have to be on your game from the minute you say hello till the minute that they leave. And remember, the day starts at 10 a.m. and ends at like 6:30 in the evening. It's a long day, but I will tell you from my perspective, it's the most fun thing we do. In all the events that we do, it is the most fun. People are happy. So the swag, we can get into, what works, what doesn't. Also, the evening program. So when you have the honoree, what we do is people come in, tennis players come in at 3. We finally have figured out after years of what to do to keep them there. The golfers come in anywhere between 4 and 5. They shower, they come up for cocktails. We used to do cocktails for a half hour and then go into dinner. This year we combined cocktails with dinner because people want to get out of there. They want to go home. They want to see their children before they put them to bed. It's been a long day and we want to be respectful of that. So we combined the whole thing. The irony is this year, so many people wanted to just sit outside on a beautiful day and have their cocktails and didn't rush to dinner. Last year, they didn't want the cocktails and they wanted to rush to dinner and get the program over. So this year we did cocktails starting at 5 with dinner. And then at 5:45, we started our program. Program usually runs about 20 minutes. This is the part where we honor the person. We usually get their family involved if in the honoring and so forth. And it's a typical program where for us, our head of school will do the honoring of this person. Also at this time, we announce all the golf winners, all the tennis winners, and we also announce all the raffle winners because we also play a game where you have to beat the pro on the course. You pay $50 to take part in the Beat the Pro. And then your name goes into a raffle jar. And then that night, whoever is presenting picks out that winner. We call it a 50-50, they get half of it. So if $2,000 was in the pot, they get $1,000, but we're very good at asking them to donate their $1,000 back. I've never had an instance where they didn't give their half back. I used to be a little aggressive about it. I have decided not to be aggressive about it anymore, but they always return it. They always return it back. So they're right there for just Beat the Pro. You have $2,000 that goes into the pot for the day. And then the program ends at 6:30, and we usually make sure we have cute golf cookies and so forth, or something to end the day where they go home with like warm cookies in their car as they leave. Like you just want them to, as I said, walk out the door wanting more. And obviously we bring in a kosher caterer. We have typically used, in every year I've done it, we've used Prestige. The clubs like working with Prestige. They say they're very respectful of their kitchen, and they do such a good menu for us because not only do you need a tremendous brunch and then cocktails and sushi and dinner, but out on the golf course, you have 2 grill stations and you need hamburgers, hot dogs, grilled chicken. Like people want a lot of food. They want to feel like they're paying a lot for the day. They want to be given a lot.
There are also alcohol on the course.
Yes. So typically what happens is, I'm sure every one of you knows Rabbi Pell. So Rabbi Pell has a very important job that day. He and I load up a cooler with beer and all kinds of alcohol. And I'm not proud of saying this because I, don't love going out and being a bartender and giving them alcohol, but we go out there with cups and we become the mini bar and we go from hole to hole. And people, so first of all, for me, it's an opportunity to just say hello to everyone and thank everyone for being there. And they love that the rabbi and I are serving them drinks. And it's great, and they're happy, and it's just a nice touch point, and just check on things. And you sometimes find out, they say the people in front of them are going too slow. Can we do something about it? But we typically take like 2 hours and go out and serve the alcohol. We could ask the club to do it, but for me, it's a touch point for us to go out and say hello. The next thing that I want to say is the golf committee. We typically have 4 chairs, 2 golf, 2 tennis, and then a committee of like 10 people. In terms of raising the interest in your organization to get people to come, it is key that you have people that have tremendous name recognition for both the chairs and the committee, because you need them working the phones and say, hey, so-and-so is being honored. This is our first golf outing. And if it's not your first golf outing, you just want to say, we're doing another golf outing. We need you to come play, and we need you to bring your friends. And you really work the phones. Once the invitation goes out and we've started to get RSVPs, we really bring in all the people by working the phones. And that I always say to the committee, that they have 2 responsibilities: one, to work the phones, and the second is to find raffle prizes, sports tickets, and so forth. And we'll get to that. But I never call for meetings in person. Don't want to meet in person. And I find that if we can get key people to say yes to chairing it, and that it's 3 or 4 Zoom calls, they're much more willing to say yes than to say, oh, we're going to have a meeting. And the first years I did it, we would do a meeting at 8 o'clock at night, and people would come, and we would sit and discuss things that we didn't need to sit and talk about for each topic. I would have this big agenda, and it was like not necessary. What your committee and your chairs really need to do is recruitment, and then the raffle prizes. And but that's really key. And you've got to find the avid golfers in your organization and say, this is what I need you to do. I need you to chair it. And then I think that the bulk of the work, I mean, I'm not going to kid you, comes internal. Like for us here, the bulk of the work, but it's easy work, and it's so worth it. And it's a good use of your time, because the money raised is so significant. I mentioned the raffles. So I learned something a couple of years ago. We used to try to go get magnificent raffle prizes and live auction items. And what I learned about the raffles is people come to golf outings, and they know that it's customary that the first thing you're going to be hit with is, do you want to buy raffles? They know that that's expected of them. So it doesn't really matter how many raffle items or if it's magnificent. And this year was the good test. We struggled with finding really great items. We had a foursome to Quaker Ridge and a foursome to this club and that club. And then we had Yankees tickets, Mets tickets, Jets tickets, Giants tickets, but nothing was something over the top, and nothing merited being a live auction item on its own. So I said, I bet we will raise as much money as the years that I thought we had these tremendous raffle prizes, because I have learned over the years watching everyone, you grab them as they come in and you offer. We did, 10 raffle tickets for $200. We put like a package together, and we promote that, and we say, and 2 mulligans, which, by the way, mulligans are do-overs, which, as I said, I am now an expert on the golf lingo. So we did the mulligans. And so everyone comes in and buys the $200, we call it the premium package. They don't even look at the board and ask what the raffle prizes are. So this year, when I thought they were light, and I was a little bit embarrassed asking for the $200, we made more money this year on raffles than we ever did before. So I used to get caught up in, do we have enough? Are they worthy of it? You put in some sports tickets, you put in some foursomes to golf outings, and there you go, and you raise just as much money. And we raise around $5,000 to $6,000 in raffles, and that's amazing, because that's just additive, income to the bottom line. So I don't get stuck on what they are. Just know that you need to offer raffle tickets and prizes, because people expect that when they walk in the door. They come into registration, they register, they get their swag, and the next booth they go to before they head to the locker room is the raffles, and everyone stops and buys the raffles. Make sense? So I'm trying to give you the things that took me years to learn. So those are really, to me, the key elements, but I've been talking for a half hour, sort of turn it over to you and ask as many questions as you'd like, and I hope I can be helpful.
If I can jump in, because I'm shaking here after this, because Barbara, and you just said it, 18 years of doing this, and let's not let a perfection scare us away from starting. Barbara has, as always, if you know Barbara as I do, checked every box, every option. If in the first year you don't have swag, don't let that dissuade you. Barbara always, I'm sorry to keep on saying so many nice things about Barbara, but it's totally sincere. It's the gold standard. It's okay to get a silver in your first couple of years. And looking at it a little bit differently, we are having a challenge in the Jewish community of engaging men. And golf is not about men, I'm not in any way suggesting that, but this, and I'm guessing that it's a majority of men who come to this event.
So yes, and I always wanted, so it's mostly men at the golf and mostly women at the tennis, which is a terrible thing to say. My goal this year was to get 2 foursomes of women to play golf, and I got 1.5. So instead of getting 8, I got 6, and I thought that was pretty good.
So anyway, this is a good way, besides raising money, it's also in terms of building connections, which Barbara mentioned, of course, with men who are increasingly disengaged or getting more it's very hard to engage men. So this is,
and I want to say to that, when you said the gold standard, the silver standard, you just have to start. You just have to say, a year from now, we're going to do a golf outing, and you start putting things in place, because I thought it was daunting, and it's not. And I also have learned how much people love it, and they come back the next year, and then you have another revenue stream, that you're guaranteed every year. And you sort of just have to jump in and know. I mean, I think the first year we raised only like 40-something thousand, but then we sort of, you have to take chances, and you have to be bold, and you learn from it, and then you build on it. And then the next year you figure out this is more important. And listen, it took me 15 years to realize that it doesn't matter what the raffles are. That people are just, trained to sort of come in, and it's sort of the standard that you do it. But it's such a great way, like you just said, Elliot, to engage the men.
Barbara, I have a question. First of all, thank you so much. Very insightful. And I took notes of everything that you mentioned. So in terms of the raffle, do you feel like there should be a raffle? And then, so should there be a raffle at all? And then how much money do you raise on average from the raffle? So
I do think there should be a raffle. If you can keep people to, like, listen, I called someone who I know has tickets to Mets and Yankees every year through his firm, and he comes and plays every year. So I called him a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I need tickets, either Mets, Yankees, both, whatever you want, but I need tickets. He gave me one of both. So I think that you need it, because I just said to you, we typically raise between $5,000 and $6,000 minimum for raffles. Why would you want to turn that away? You know what I mean? That's a nice chunk of money. And I don't like leaving money on the table. And I feel that if you can pull together 10 items and put them in the raffle, don't leave it on the table. That is my recommendation. If you want to start small and not do raffles and just sort of, start with a golf outing and do it without it, that's okay. I just try to look every which way to raise money.
Thank you.
And again, I'm stressing to you that it is an expectation when you come to a golf outing that your second stop after registering is to buy raffle tickets.
Thank you.
And it's funny, because I will tell you this, we have a bunch of rabbis that come every year, and not only do they donate auction items, they're the first at the raffle line buying 1 million raffles. So it is the expectation of everyone.
But Barbara, first of all, this is incredibly helpful.
I hope so.
No, it is. So to clarify what Elliot was saying, what you were saying is our leadership is thinking about this, being realistic. It's our first year again. how would we even be able to determine what would be, an amount that we would raise in the first year? Now, if you're raising 100,000 now after 15, do we really say that this is something that could net us 30, 40, $50,000? Is that in the ballpark? I know there's a lot of unknowns, but how do we gauge this?
So from your synagogue, I think to start out, I think it's very doable, but I think you have to really have a strategy. You have to start with a strategy meeting. And you have to figure out, okay, we want to do it. What is the best club for us? And by the way, Hampshire's a great club to use as well.
I was going to ask, we have members that are very, very connected there. So does that kind of automatically obligate us or tie us to going there first? Does that have enough cachet for people?
So I don't think it has enough cachet, but it made me think of it because I assumed that, yes, you do have a lot of members there.
Yeah.
The club, as I started out this conversation, and I said, and I deliberately talked about the club first because it is key. It is cachet. You try to get into the best. I don't know what the best clubs are because I don't play golf, but I hear from people and I always say, what are the best courses to play? And that's when they tell me the best courses to play are the Quaker Ridge, the Fenway, you know what I mean? The ones. And so when I say best club, I don't mean club, I mean course.
Right. Just politically,
So I need.
I don't know if we politically have to go to him.
But you may not. But I think you need to think it out and have a strategy session saying, okay, let's dream about this. If we wanted to do a golf outing, what are the top 2 clubs we would try to get into? Do we have a congregant that is an avid golfer that we would love to honor at this? Are there 2 or 3 people that we can engage and ask them if they would share it, if they knew that their only jobs were to work on recruitment and prizes and not do the day-to-day work of getting this together? The club does most of the work. Like when I give, and the funny thing is, like, I put the foursomes together because it just sort of works. I know who's friends with and so forth. And then I turn it over to the club and I meet with the club, and I only go to the club twice. I go to the club like in April and then in May. And then they take the foursomes and sort of fix them for me based on people's handicaps and so forth. I don't even know what they're fixing. And that's what I love, because then they take over. They do the prizes. It's included in it. You know what I mean? So, like we're going to do closest to this, so that I don't even understand what the prizes are. And I love that I don't have to understand it. I just know that the players love it. So the club, the better clubs take all that responsibility. But again, have a strategy meeting, start out with, in a perfect world, where would we go play? Who would we honor? And who would we want as the committee chairs? You find the chairs, and then you say to the chairs, okay, bring 2 people in to be on the committee. If each one of them brought 2 people in, you have your committee. And I always put the honoree on the committee as well, because it's good to have them invested in it from day one. So they are officially on the committee. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Given the threshold of 80 golfers, if we're considering this for the first time, would you recommend? What are your thoughts about 2 organizations, 2 schools, what have you, teaming up and jointly doing this? Does that create too much complication? Too much?
So the only issue that I see, and I actually love that idea because I always believe in collaboration, and I love that. But here's where it can get messy. So let's say you're going to do it with another shul, and we agree you're going to split everything. What if your shul of the 80 golfers brings in 70 of them, and the other shul brings in 10, right? And do you have 2 honorees or 1 honoree? I think it can be done. And again, I love collaboration. I think it's going to be really tricky. And I think it's going to come down to, and what if, the other organization or shul says, well, we brought in more raffle money. We brought in 7,000 and you only brought in 2,000. Like, it's so hard to figure that out.
I kind of suspected the answer, but wanted to ask just because I wonder about the 80 person threshold.
Yeah.
you know, for the
I
first
will be
time.
honest with you. I get very nervous, like, are we gonna make the 80? Because we're gonna have to pay for the 80, and I don't
Well,
want to throw out.
That actually goes to my second related question, which is, can you lay out what the expenses are? You've talked about what the revenue is, but I'd like to understand what the various
Right,
expenses
so
are.
it's not a cheap day, and so we charge for individual golfers $750. It's a steep price, but people who play golf and go to outings understand that this is the cost. The reason why it's so high is because we have to pay, our expenses all in are a little over $500 in terms of paying the club. It depends what club you use. We have to pay the club. It has to include the food for the day. That's brunch and cocktails and dinner, and it has to include the swag. So you have to get that back. And some people, when they write the check to the school, are a little upset that they don't get a tax letter, but they only get a tax letter for a tiny portion of it. And, you know, because the rest of it is the cost of doing business. It's the cost of the event. So it's not tax deductible. The other thing that's important to understand is that's why you want as many sponsorships and non-player sponsorships. So for instance, we charge $6,400 for an Eagle sponsorship. So if you take out the 500, and it includes 4 golfers, if you take out the 4 golfers, right, at 500, it's 2,000. So we make 4,400. So you want to really encourage sponsorships. We make the least money on these individual golfers. So one year, like 5 years ago, the committee said, we don't want individual golfers. Let's make it so high that we only get sponsorships. And I, you know, and these big sponsorships. And I said, this is a school. $750 is a lot of money to pay as is. Why would we do that to our community? It feels like we're making it exclusive instead of inclusive. So I pushed back, and I think it was the right decision to make. But of course we want the people who come in and buy the birdies and the Eagles and so forth. Because that's where you'll make the most money. We're making very little on the individual golfers. But the other thing we do is we offer as non-player sponsorships is that you can, let's say you hear that your friend is being honored. You don't play golf, you don't want to go, you have no interest in going to the dinner, because by the way, you can just come to the dinner for $180. But we say you can buy signage on a hole. It's $360 to buy signage on a hole. So that is reasonable. And it costs us to put the lawn sign on the hole, $15, right? So look at the money we've made. So we love it when people say, can I buy signage for the hole? Sometimes on some holes, we'll have 4 or 5 signage there. And don't think the person who's being honored isn't see that, you know, that someone bought sponsorship. They either buy it for their company, they buy it from their family. Sometimes they put something up. I have someone every year who calls and says, I want hole 13. Never comes to the golf outing. It's a grandparent in the school, wants 13. He's got 13 every year and sends his $360. There's no cost around it. It's great. So it's those kind of things are great money makers. We make the least money on the individual golfers. And that's why if you can come up with clever sponsorship, you know, non-player sponsorship, you'll make nice money.
Also, guys, you may find that many businesses may be reluctant to sponsor certain events that are inherently Jewish. We don't want to sponsor a Purim carnival, or we don't want to sponsor something in your building, but sponsoring a hole on a golf club, you might get maybe some organizations or groups who would be more inclined to do something because it's less sectarian. Just an observation.
Barbara, are all of the players from the school, or do they bring in family and friends from other places to play as well? Is it all coming from Leffell itself or not?
So it's interesting you say that. There have been people who have been brought in years ago who buy Eagle sponsorship, and the people that they had come with are no longer, they graduated, they're alum families that no longer come to the golf outing. and they come back every year. And what I do is I invite whoever's come for the past 3 years. I make sure that if they're outside the school, they get an invitation. And if they haven't signed up and there are people who bought these sponsors, you know, the Eagle or the Birdie, I call them and personally invite them back to play. And 9 times out of 10, they do. So it's very mixed. An honoree will bring in a lot of people from the outside. So this year, I would say, because it was a parent in the school who has a lot of friends in the school, it was probably 65% within the school, 35% from outside. But it varies every year, but you never want to lose the people who have come and bought Eagles and Birdies, and you have to like personally invite them back. And they're coming back because A, they love the course, and B, it is really a fun day. Everyone leaves happy. Even the people from the school who work it, and our head of school who plays every year will say it's like the happiest day. I don't know why, but everyone is just happy.
Maybe it's the alcohol.
Yeah, I'm sure that helped. Barbara, I put a question in the chat about, do organizations also hire an outside person to do certain things or to help with fundraising if they're not structured such that?
So great question. So I will tell you, when I first started this, I decided that I wanted like a consultant to help with the golf outing to see if I was not maximizing what we could raise. So for 1 year, we hired an organization. There are professional organizations that come in and do your whole golf outing for you. So I learned from him the first year. And what I learned is that I don't need them. And I think we paid them $5,000. And I found that it's not necessary. And the things that they were doing, the club would do for you anyway. They're not going to do your recruiting for you. And they had offered to send the emails. But what's so good about that? Then the people you're sending to are getting emails from a stranger.
Right.
And, you know, it's like everything. It's the personal touch. You have to reach out. And that's why I always say to the committee, you got to reach out to everyone. You have to work on their recruitment because it has to come from people they know. So when they offered to send these emails from their golf, you know, consulting firm, it's just weird. Like they're not going to open it, or even if they do, they're not going to respond. They're not going to know if it's legit. So I did it for 1 year because I wanted to know if there's anything more I could learn. And you don't need it. I felt like I was paying them to do things that I would have preferred to do myself.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
So save yourself the time. And as I said to you, you need a year and you need to think it through methodically, and you sit down with the club once you identify a club, and they'll help you so much. Like they had to sit one day years ago and go through all the terminology for me.
Do we need a member in that club to get us in though?
No, I don't have, I never got into Quaker Ridge or any of them with having a member get us in.
Oh, okay.
Trust me, if they have a date, they want you.
Uh-huh.
Their club is closed and they want golf outings on the days their clubs are closed. Yeah, listen, so it's funny because with Quaker Ridge in particular, when I first called them many years ago, and the gentleman who's the general manager, who's amazing, was really tough. And he said he scares some people away. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to get, fearful because he's so tough and doesn't understand that I know nothing. And now we are like the best of friends, and I laugh about it because, I said to him, I know nothing. I need your help. And he was, abrupt, tough, because he runs a busy club. And, you just sort of stay in it, and it has benefited us and it's benefited him. It's really not as hard and as daunting as it looks.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we don't want to take up your entire lunch hour. Knowing Barbara's thoroughness, she probably ordered lunch. If you look outside your front door. as Barbara said, you know, take one step at a time. And most of you don't have professional fundraisers or departments on your staff. So absolutely, you just have to have the resources in place. And even if you break even in the first year, if you've done some community building, that has a value. You're going to have to figure that out within your priorities. But we need to find ways to engage people. And we are a golfing community. And we're all looking for creative ways. And I'm going to guess, I don't want to put Barbara on the spot, but that if you have any follow-up questions, she would certainly make herself available to you.
I'm happy to answer them. Just wait until after our gala next week.
No problem.
And then I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
Can I put your email address in the chat?
Yes, I have no issue with that, but I know that I would not respond till after June 1st. So I
No problem.
don't want to set any false expectations.
Okay, it's B Shapiro at the Leffell School.
Just Leffell School, Leffell school.org.
Okay.
You can do a delay send, so it's not to clog her. Barb's
So that I get it the morning of June 2nd.
Yes, at 6 a.m., which is when
1,500
Barbara usually returns my emails well before 6 a.m. So anyway.
Thank you so much for this. This has been an eye-opening. I've done some fundraiser stuff, but I've never done a golf. I don't golf either, by the way. And the one thing I would add is, and you've alluded to it throughout, a friend of mine started with a golf tournament that I'm about to go to next month. That's become this big fundraising thing. The branding aspect of it is such a huge thing for whatever the cause is, in this case, a synagogue. And then many people who don't golf would want to participate. We call it Simply Social. A bunch of us come for the Simply Social. But to brand it in a way with the swag and the holes and the, and again, it gets some of the concern about, is this only for the religious aspect or anyone can come? It really, and a friend of mine, actually, I call them frienders now because they're friends of mine who, like one is like a comedian who does like the live auction aspect of it, or one of them is a branding specialist. If anyone needs these people, I'm happy to put them in touch. But it becomes a fun thing, you guys kept saying fun, of getting people out beyond the golf. Some people play golf, and every member of your synagogue that plays golf is going to these things, raising money for other causes. They're going to come to yours. Of course, they're going to come to yours.
Well, I added something, which I didn't tell you. I did this for the first time this year when my tennis players were saying, what am I going to do between 3 and 5 and so forth? And you need to find entertainment and so forth. Then I realized that it was Mother's Day weekend that we were coming into. Mother's Day was late this year because nothing's ever on time. So it was the 14th. And I was like, okay, what can I do that can have like, do something for them? So very quickly, with 2 weeks to go, I reached out to someone in our community who I know can get like pop-up shops, like of vendors to come in and, sell simple things like you could buy a Mother's Day present for your spouse when you're there, or the women could buy something. We set up four very different vendors, and it was so successful. And we had them come not till 4 o'clock. So you got off the golf course, and we put them out on the lawn with everything, and there was no pressure. And and I wasn't looking to raise money. I was looking to offer a service. So I only told them that they had to give us 10% of what they made, because it was more important that they came and I offered a service. Well, I was an idiot for only offering 10% because they all did so well, but it was such a nice additive thing because it just in my head, it was like, what do we do? And it's Mother's Day weekend. And like one gentleman bought his wife his Mother's Day gift. You know what I mean? Like it worked, and people weren't offended that we put something in, and it was very non-intrusive, vendors. And I did that this year. I mean, I don't know whether it'll happen in the future. I don't know what the date of the event will be and so forth, but it was a nice, soft added touch. And we made money.
So Barbara, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
I know everybody joins me and, agrees with me that this was really very helpful. And I will be sending out the recording next week.
Okay, great.
So if you would like to share it or look at it again. And I just want to wish everybody a Chag Sameach and enjoy your Shavuot and your Memorial Weekend. And hope to see you soon.
All right.
Thank
Take
you
care,
so
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Bye.
Well, Elliot, for listening to, the idea. Appreciate it. All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye. Al.